In the medieval world, raw honey was not just a sweetener, but a vital part of daily life. Valued as both nourishment and medicine, harvested from wildflowers, forests, and untouched landscapes, it remained completely natural, alive with enzymes, pollen, propolis, and beneficial microorganisms that modern science now recognizes as powerful for human health. People used raw honey to heal wounds, fight infections, boost stamina, and strengthen immunity because it was never heated, ultra-filtered, or industrially altered. Bees lived in clean environments free from pesticides and chemical agriculture, producing honey with strong antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties that supported digestion, stabilized energy levels, and protected the body from disease. This is why medieval people, despite harsh living conditions and physical labor, often displayed remarkable resilience, endurance, and resistance to illness. Raw honey worked with their bodies, not against them. Modern honey, however, tells a very different story, shaped by factories rather than nature. Most commercial honey is heavily processed through high-heat pasteurization that destroys delicate enzymes, followed by ultra-filtration that removes pollen, the very element that gives honey its local identity and immune-supporting power. In many cases, honey is diluted or adulterated with corn syrup or refined sugars to increase profit, turning what should be a living food into something that behaves more like empty sweetness. Instead of gently nourishing the body, this dead honey spikes blood sugar, disrupts gut bacteria, fuels inflammation, and contributes to fatigue and cravings. Although the label may claim purity, the reality is that much of today's honey has lost the very qualities that once made it a superfood. The true difference between medieval raw honey and modern honey is biological, not just historical or cultural. Raw honey is alive, containing natural yeasts and enzymes that actively support digestion and metabolic balance, while modern honey is sterile, stripped of its cooperative relationship with the human body. In the past, people consumed honey seasonally and locally, allowing their immune systems to adapt naturally to the environment through trace pollens and microbes present in the honey. Today, mass-produced honey is often blended from unknown sources across continents, eliminating any meaningful biological connection to the consumer. As a result, allergies, digestive disorders, and metabolic issues continue to rise, leading many to wrongly assume that honey itself is harmful, when in truth, it is the processing that has transformed a healing food into a metabolic burden. If we truly want to benefit from honey the way medieval people once did, we must change our perspective and our choices. Real honey should be raw, unheated, unfiltered, and ideally local, capable of crystallizing naturally. Because crystallization is a sign of life, not spoilage. It should be consumed in small, intentional amounts as nourishment and medicine, rather than as a sugar substitute. Medieval societies thrived without modern convenience because their diets remained deeply connected to nature, while today we sacrifice health for shelf life and visual perfection. As long as honey is treated as a factory product instead of a living food, it will continue to disappoint the body rather than heal it. But when respected in its natural form, honey still holds the power to nourish, protect, and strengthen human health, just as it did centuries ago. What makes this shift from medieval raw honey to modern commercial honey so dangerous is not just what has been removed, but what has quietly replaced it. As global demand increased, beekeeping turned industrial. Bees were pushed into monoculture fields, where they feed on a single crop rather than diverse wild plants, weakening their immune systems and reducing the nutritional complexity of the honey they produce. To keep up with supply, antibiotics and chemical treatments entered hives, and traces of these substances now appear in the final product, subtly interfering with human gut flora and hormonal balance over time. Unlike medieval honey, which fermented gently in the body and fed beneficial bacteria, modern honey often acts like a refined carbohydrate, encouraging insulin resistance when consumed regularly. This long-term metabolic stress does not cause immediate illness, which is why it goes unnoticed, but it slowly contributes to weight gain, chronic inflammation, brain fog, and energy crashes. Medieval people respected honey as a powerful substance that demanded balance and restraint, while modern culture promotes it as a guilt-free sweetener to be added freely to drinks, snacks, and processed foods. The result is a complete reversal of honey's original role, from a healing, adaptive food that worked in harmony with human biology to a misleading product that wears the mask of health while quietly undermining. The final and most overlooked truth is that medieval raw honey functioned as part of an entire way of living that modern society has almost completely lost, and without understanding this context, honey can never work for us the way it once did. In the medieval era, honey was consumed alongside whole foods, slow digestion, physical labor, natural fasting cycles, and constant exposure to the outdoors, meaning the body was metabolically flexible and primed to use honey as fuel rather than store it as fat. Honey entered a system that moved constantly, sweated regularly, slept with the sun, and faced natural stressors that strengthened rather than weakened the body. In contrast, modern humans consume honey while sedentary, sleep-deprived, overstimulated, and already overloaded with refined carbohydrates, artificial additives, and chronic stress hormones, creating a metabolic environment where even natural sugars are mishandled. This mismatch is why many people blame honey itself for issues like fatigue, bloating, acne, or blood sugar crashes, when in reality, honey is being asked to perform a role it was never meant to play, acting as a health fix inside an unhealthy system. Medieval honey worked because it entered bodies that were insulin-sensitive, microbiome-rich, and rhythm-aligned with nature, whereas modern honey enters bodies already inflamed, microbiome-depleted, and disconnected from biological timing. Even the act of eating was different. Honey was taken slowly, often dissolved in warm water, mixed with herbs, or eaten after physical exertion, not added impulsively to processed foods or sugary beverages. Over centuries, honey was respected, feared, measured, and understood, not marketed. Today, aggressive advertising convinces people that simply switching white sugar for honey automatically creates health, ignoring the deeper truth that no single food can compensate for a broken lifestyle. The tragedy is not that honey has failed us, but that we have removed honey from the natural framework that once made it powerful. Until modern humans restore at least part of that framework, movement, restraint, seasonality, microbial diversity, and metabolic awareness, honey will continue to feel disappointing, confusing, or even harmful. But when those foundations are rebuilt, raw honey does not need hype or labels. It quietly resumes its ancient role as a supportive, intelligent food that works in harmony with human biology, not as a miracle cure, but as it always was, a subtle ally shaped by nature, time, and respect. There is also a deeper psychological and cultural damage caused by modern honey that medieval people never experienced. Because honey today is consumed in a mindset of excess rather than intention, medieval societies viewed sweetness as rare and valuable, something earned through effort and seasonality, which naturally limited overconsumption and trained the brain to respect pleasure instead of chasing it. Modern honey is marketed as endlessly available, cheap, and harmless, encouraging constant stimulation of dopamine pathways and reinforcing the modern addiction to sweetness, even when disguised as natural. This constant low-level sugar exposure dulls taste sensitivity, weakens appetite regulation, and trains the body to expect quick energy without effort, a pattern completely opposite to how honey once functioned in human evolution. Raw honey in the past rewarded physical work, cold exposure, fasting, or illness recovery, acting as a bridge between effort and restoration, while today it is often consumed mindlessly, layered on top of already sweet diets, compounding metabolic confusion. Over time, this creates a disconnect where people no longer feel energized by honey but instead experience crashes, irritability, and cravings, leading them to assume that honey itself is flawed. In reality, the flaw lies in modern behavior patterns that strip honey of its original meaning and biological timing. Medieval honey aligned pleasure with survival, teaching restraint through scarcity, whereas modern honey fuels overindulgence through abundance. This shift quietly reshapes human psychology, turning a once grounding food into another trigger for overstimulation. Until sweetness is recontextualized as something earned, seasonal, and purposeful, honey will continue to feel less like nourishment and more like temptation, despite carrying the same ancient potential it always had. At the deepest level, the story of medieval raw honey versus modern honey is really a warning about what happens when humans interfere with natural intelligence they do not fully understand. Honey is not a man-made invention, but a complex biological substance refined by bees over millions of years, designed to preserve life, resist decay, and deliver energy in a balanced, stable form. Medieval humans did not attempt to improve honey. They accepted its imperfections, its variations in color, thickness, taste, and crystallization, understanding that these changes reflected the land, the season, and the health. The hive. Modern industry, obsessed with uniformity and shelf life, stripped honey of this intelligence by forcing it to remain liquid, visually perfect, and indefinitely stable, even though these traits signal lifelessness. In doing so, we replaced a responsive, adaptive food with a predictable but biologically empty product. This is why modern honey feels disconnected from the body. It no longer carries environmental information, microbial signals, or enzymatic cues that once helped humans adapt to their surroundings. Medieval people trusted nature more than branding, and their health benefited from that humility. Today, we trust labels, marketing, and convenience over sensory feedback and biological wisdom. The real sickness is not caused by honey itself, but by the belief that nature must be controlled to be useful. Until that belief is challenged, honey will remain misunderstood, blamed for problems it did not create, while its true power remains locked away behind glass jars, factory processes, and forgotten knowledge. When you step back and look at the full arc of history, it becomes clear that honey did not change on its own. Human priorities changed, and honey was reshaped to fit them. Medieval people lived inside nature's limits, so every food, especially something as concentrated as honey, carried responsibility, awareness, and consequence. Honey was gathered with risk, protected with care, and consumed with respect, which naturally kept its role aligned with health and survival. Modern society, however, operates on the idea that limits are problems to be solved. So honey was industrialized, standardized, and made endlessly available, even if that meant breaking its natural structure. In this process, honey lost its role as a teacher of balance and became just another product designed to satisfy desire instantly. This shift mirrors a larger pattern in modern health. Instead of adapting our bodies and habits to nature, we force nature to adapt to our habits, then feel confused when our health declines. Honey did not evolve to support sedentary lifestyles, constant snacking, artificial light cycles, and emotional eating. Yet it is consumed within all of these conditions daily. Medieval people did not need nutrition labels or influencers to tell them honey was powerful. They felt it in their bodies because their lives were simple enough to notice cause and effect. Today, the noise of modern living drowns out those signals, so people keep adding more healthy foods while ignoring the broken foundation underneath. The final lesson of medieval raw honey is not about going backward in time, but about recovering humility, understanding that some foods only work when the human system itself is working as intended. Until that humility returns, honey will continue to be misunderstood, misused, and unfairly blamed, even though it remains one of nature's most intelligent gifts, waiting for humans to meet it with the same restraint, patience, and respect that once allowed it to help civilizations thrive.